Chemistry Room Fragrances is the perfect addition when Chemistry Room Fragrances is the perfect addition when elevating the vibe of any space, whether if it's your home, car, or office, and something needs a quick refresh. Our room fragrances provide that beautiful burst of fragrance with just one quick mist. Shop now at www.chemistryroomfragrances.com and be sure to follow us on Instagram at Chemistry Room Fragrances. Chemistry Room Fragrances. Smells so good.
Hey, what's up, everybody? This is your girl, Camille Essick. I'm host of the Speaker Podcast. This is the podcast where innovators and creators connect. Tonight, we have a very, very special episode, conversation coming up here. I have some phenomenal brothers that I'm adding to my screen right now. While I'm doing that, please be sure to hit that notification button and subscribe, share with your friends. This is going to be an awesome conversation. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me here.
Thanks so much for having us.
Hey, thank you for having us.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So everyone is looking great. So first of all, for those that may not be familiar with yourselves, please introduce yourselves, guys.
Who's going to go first?
I'll go first. My name is Mackenzie.
My name is
Terrence Boyd, and I am a corporate employee here in Atlanta, Georgia, also a singer and a new father. Congratulations. Thank you.
I am Candice O'Brien. I am an entrepreneur, and I am a classic uncle dad.
I'm Prescott Mack. I figured I haven't had much time to talk to men, and shout out to Camille for putting this together. So I got the cigar and whiskey on me today. So
yes,
it's gonna be a grown man conversation. But I'm Prescott Mack. I am a sports agent and owner of a professional basketball team called the Dallas Skyline, and I'm in Dallas. Glad to be here. Father of three.
Awesome. First of all, I want to thank you guys so much for taking the time out of your busy schedules to join me here. I'm looking forward to this phenomenal conversation. Before I get things popping, just to kind of break the ice, I know sometimes we can get a little nervous. As long as I've been doing this, I still get nervous. So it's going to not only help you, but help me as well. So, and all you guys can jump in and participate. And if you're watching or listening later, you can do that as well. So it's called This or That. Let's see here. This or that. 80s or 90s?
80s.
90s for sure.
I'm probably
It's hard. I'm gonna say 90s, but I'm feeling 80s too. But I'm gonna say 90s.
Okay. Let's see. Earth, Wind, and Fire or Isley Brothers?
Earth, Wind, and Fire.
I'm going
Earth, Wind, and Fire. But I'm supposed to be banging too. But Earth, Wind, and Fire. These are some hard questions.
I'm gonna go with Isley Brothers. You know, I gotta go with Isley Brothers.
I'm choosing violence, as you can see. Peach cobbler or pecan pie?
Pecan pie, easy.
Peach cobbler.
Okay.
With the extra crust, light juice.
Okay. Let's see. Your granny's plate or your mother's plate?
Granny.
I'm glad neither one of them watching this right now.
That's
I'm
Okay.
going. My mama
I'm
can't cook.
going with my granny plate.
Your mama can't cook. Oh my God.
Yeah, I'm going with my granny
I'm
plate.
the cook in my house. My mama can't cook.
Oh my God.
So I'm going with grandma for sure.
She watching.
That's
I'm
fine.
going with-
She know.
Grandma.
Okay.
You gotta live her truth.
All right. Ray Allen or Stephen Curry?
Ray Allen.
Man, Jesus Shuttlesworth.
Oh Lord. Let's see. Basketball or football?
Basketball.
Basketball.
90s or 2000s?
90s.
I was trying to pick any the first time. 90s, you're asking that. 90s, definitely.
Car or truck?
Truck.
Horror or action?
Action.
Me too.
I don't understand the method of or the thought process to make yourself scared on purpose.
To trick your mind. It's a Jedi mind trick, man.
I don't understand it.
Oh my gosh. Bryson Tiller or Drake?
Drake. I gotta go with Drake.
Yeah, I'll say Drake.
Easy.
Power or BMF?
Power.
BMF.
Never
Power.
seen either one.
Okay.
What is BMF? Look.
Man.
That's about Big Meat.
Your family.
Okay. So
Okay.
I was forced to watch Power. The mother of my child, that's all she did. So I had to learn it.
Power is dope.
compromise.
Swiss or Timberland?
Say what? I didn't hear it.
Swiss
Swiss
Beats
Beats.
or Timberland? Producer.
Timberland.
Swiss Beats. I'm going Swiss Beats.
I'm going Timberland.
Ooh, really?
See his music. I plead the fifth. I can't pick. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's
They
kinda
both
hard.
don't. They both don't. In
That's
different ways.
They are. Faded February or No Shave November?
February.
Say it again.
What's February?
Faded February or No Shave November?
No Shave November.
Faded
February.
It's my birthday month. So.
February is my birthday month, so I don't know. It might be faded February.
All right. Let's see. LeBron or Jordan?
Jordan.
Easy.
Okay. Last one.
Yo.
Jasmine Sullivan or Ari Lennox?
Jasmine Sullivan.
That's what's up.
I don't even listen to them two. So
I feel like you, D8.
Jasmine Sullivan on D's behalf, Jasmine Sullivan.
All right. Well, that was fun. It just kind of broke up the ice, get the little jitterbugs out or whatever. So again, I want to thank you guys for coming on here. I do want to open up the conversation as far as fatherhood and some of your perspectives. We may not get to everything for the sake of time, but I think it's important. One of the things that I felt, and I've shared with you guys before, that of course, I do have the ladies come on here. However, Black women, we have so many spaces to communicate and share our feelings. However, as far as Black men, you guys don't have as many spaces. So I want to be kind of like an ally to open the door where men can come on, Black men can come on and discuss different things, whether it's entrepreneurship, relationships, marriage, dating, fatherhood, friendships. I want this to be a safe space where you guys can do that. So that's why I'm lending my mic to you all. Then also to drop some gems to open some ears and create some conversation and some things to think about. So thank you all for being here.
thank you for having us again.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thanks,
As you begin to you grow up and then you become a man, I hear a lot more so than ever. There's a pressure to provide, and quietly there's a lot of men, particularly Black men, that experience pressure as far as being the provider, being the father, being the one that people look up to in the home. Can you guys kind of share as far as a little more insight into what that pressure really feels like, or what you guys have to face as fathers? And anyone can take that question first.
Well, I'm going to speak on it from two perspectives. The first perspective is I didn't grow up with a father in the home. So there was that absence of that. I met my father when I was 18. So meeting my father at 18, I had to make the choice that I wanted a relationship with my father more than I wanted to be right or to find a reason to place blame. So I was already an adult. So when I saw that my nephew's fathers was not in their lives, it was important to me to show up and be a representation of what a father what my father represented to me in the 22 years that I had him before he passed.
Wow. Does anyone else want to hop in on that?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I have 3 boys. And I'm a parent at kind of every category besides uncle parent. But I'm a parent at every category. So I have a stepson who's my oldest son. I have an adopted son, and then I also have my first biological son. So having boys, I think it's a lot of pressure to make sure that, you know, I think a lot of Black men, we have rocky starts with our fathers in the beginning, but then we end up having pretty good relationships with them as adults, because we start to understand, you know, what they go through. If there was any friction, it may not have always been their fault, et cetera, et cetera. So, but still, there's still that damage there, right? So just trying to avoid, like, we work really hard, like our generation works really hard trying to not become our fathers. And so that pressure is us making sure that we're raising up sons. We have relationships with our sons. We're affectionate with our sons. We're making sure our sons are operating at an excellent level. We have high expectations for them, but at the same time, still making sure that we grow up with a great relationship with them, so they don't feel, you know, that abandonment that we felt as kids.
It's good.
That's dope.
Wow. Like what he just said was so spot on. Like, it's interesting. Like, sometimes you hear other people talking and you don't really think anyone else has your same story, because you don't talk to enough guys that have experienced it. But like, growing up, like, me and my dad relationship, he was present, but he wasn't present. If that makes any sense. He was in the same city, but he didn't necessarily parent the way that I parent my son now. And I think a lot of my parenting habits now is me being aware of the things that was missing when I was a kid. So I make sure that I give that to my son now. And like he said, like, affection, like attention, like not just being a dad in namesake, but being a dad by picking your kid up from daycare, bringing your kid to daycare, you know, feeding your kid, doing things that, like, sometimes people identify as the mom's role. It's the parent's role. And I think old school dads sometimes took that back seat. Like, I'm the daddy. Your mama gonna do this for you. Your mama gonna do that for you. And for me, I'm like, no, everything that your mama can do outside of breastfeed you, I could do. You know, and I want my kid, especially because he is a man, I want him to grow up seeing a dad that's present, that's a provider, and not just a provider in the sense of my daddy work all the time, but a provider in the sense of my daddy takes me places. My daddy does things with me. He provides me with knowledge. He provides me with this, not just providing me with a house, you know?
Mm-hmm. That's good. Yeah. You want to go to the next one? I was going to say.
Really good. Thank you.
Well, I was going to say everything that you all are saying is spot on. And actually, today is the day that my dad actually passed.
Wow.
So to be transparent, I think what we're trying to say is that we do more as our generation of a support. We try to support our kids more than our dad did. So there's some things, like you said, the relationship that we have with our dad on the back end, but on the front end, I didn't have a relationship with my dad. He was raising a whole nother family. And so I think it's so important that our kids understand, they see us, that we take them to work with us. They learn that we do have a work ethic, and they learn how we do care for other people. So just putting our kids in those positions and in those opportunities so they can see their dad, I think that's the greatest gift in the world.
Yeah.
That's good.
That's really good. DJ or Brandon or Pastor Walton, did you guys want to add on to that?
I simply was going to say I agree with everything that they were saying. The pressure of that is when you're neglected of seeing what a father, what a father should be. Like when I think the best thing that I heard my dad say was, my dad told me, son, I raised you the best way I knew how. And that's one of the things right there that stood out to me, was like, there's no stipulation or guideline on how it should be done, but there are things that we could implement, and change. But when he said that right there, it just made me think, like, okay, I'm gonna do the best way I know how as a father. What I didn't learn vulnerability to be able to speak that with my dad, because it kind of felt like it was unmasculine. I want my son to be able to talk to me about anything. So, I changed that perspective right there. Instead of I'm going to do what I know best how, based off of what they didn't do, the things that I wanted from them. So I wanted them to be able to talk to me about anything. And since I couldn't get that in there, now I'm going to do that with my kid, and as far as the pressure of it, I don't know. It's a lot of pressure because you want to make sure that whatever you teaching your kids, that that you're just, man, how can I say this? Whatever you're teaching your kids, you want to make sure that it's so instilled in them that they just take that and they send that to their kids as well in the proper way. You don't want them to think that they was ever neglected in any way, shape, or form. So you just want to make sure that you're doing the proper thing for your kids.
That's really good. Thank you, DJ. Something you guys mentioned that it made me think about my grandfather. My parents divorced when I was 2. So the majority of my life, my father wasn't there, even though he was a pastor in the PAW. A lot of people didn't even know about me until literally the day of his funeral. And my family had me to speak on behalf of the family. And that's like a whole situation within itself. But my grandfather was there in my life, and he was my father figure, very positive. And I remember as a little girl, there were certain things he would tell me, and it didn't make sense until I got older when it came to men. Just things to expect, things what they should say, not say. And he was talking to me, and I was maybe like 12 or 13. And I think it's because deep down he knew he would not see me at this age. But I do remember growing up, when he was in the house, he didn't talk a lot. He would talk to me like on the side at the breakfast table or in the garage when he was cleaning his gun or his tools, or in the yard kind of messing around. But in the house, he was very quiet. And so that's something I think a lot of women deal with as an adult woman, is growing up and not always, not all, but some of us not hearing how a man communicates in the house. Even if he was there, he was very quiet because he came from another generation where they were very silent. They didn't say a lot. So can you guys kind of unpack the difference now between how this generation of men, you're more open, you're more willing to communicate, versus before when we grew up around more silent men?
Let me just jump on it first. Like, I think some things, it's funny you say that, because I was thinking about it when we were talking about the previous topic. Some things are systematic, and I feel like some things are rooted in past behaviors and past things and learned behaviors. Like, for example, my dad's father was alcoholic, and he was present, but he had a whole nother family. So he had like my grandmother's kids. Then with my grandmother's cousin, he had a whole other family, and it was all this taboo with the kids. And then he was there, but he wasn't a provider. So at a young age, my dad had to start working and taking care of himself. So by the time my dad became a man, the little bit that he did for us, he thought was a lot, because he didn't get anything. He had to do it all himself. So as a kid, I grew up thinking, gosh, he ain't doing anything. He's not doing anything. And shout out to my mom. She always was positive. My mom was one of those moms who never dogged my dad out. She always encouraged the love and the relationship, and she gave me the opportunity to form my own opinion of my dad, not based off of any anger that she may have had. So I had a clear idea of who he was. But as I got older, I learned that my dad was a better man than his dad. So I'm now a better man than my father, and he has confirmed that he is happy and proud of who I am today, which feels very good to me. But my hope is that my son is a better man than me, because our kids may grow up thinking, dad should have did this or dad should have did that, even though we're doing all these things in addition to what our parents didn't do for us. So I think it's a systematic thing. I think especially from old school dads, that they came up in the era where sometimes being silent was the best way, and it was the way to make it sometimes. So you don't say anything rather than say the wrong thing, or rather than, allow yourself to get out of pocket.
That's really good, Terry. Thank you.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's really, really, can y'all hear me? one of the things that's really real about what he said was that his mom didn't could try to control his opinion of his father. She let him create his own narrative of his own father and build his own relationship. And that's the same thing my mom did. And that is the best gift for all the single mothers raising boys. The best gift you can give your son so that he grows up to be a great father is to let him build his own relationship with his dad and let him have his own opinion of his dad. And if like one of the things that my mom did for me is let me be disappointed, let me get hurt. And so I then was able to unpack that. And as I got older, me and my father, and let me first disclaim that my dad wasn't a bad father, but my parents divorced at 5. And so they were young. And so there was distance there. And like he said, that our fathers did the best that they could. And now we get the opportunity because our mothers allowed us to build our own relationship with our father and have our own opinions. We also could see, okay, this is how I don't want my son to feel.
Yes.
And we we kind of are a generation of the fathers. Like we want to be our kids' Superman. I want my boys to see me as Superman. I want them to see me working extremely hard and handling everything else that our fathers thought that it was important to handle, providing, bringing the money in, working hard, having a career. I want him to see me have that career and have time to be with him, whichever one it is, to be with them and be with their mother and all of that. I want them to see me as Superman, as if I don't have 24 hours. Like I must have way more time than everybody else because I'm doing everything, not just providing. I'm also being present.
I like that. And speaking of present, there are times that you may not are always present. And I wanted to bring Pastor Walton into the conversation because there was a period of time before he became a pastor. I had him on a previous episode when he discussed and shared with us his journey being incarcerated and being called to ministry while he was incarcerated, but then being married. So Pastor Walton, with that situation, for those that may have been incarcerated and not been present, how did you navigate that, or what is your advice to those to navigate that space when you're parenting from afar and still trying to be present in your son's life and to then come back and be in your child's life?
The one thing that I can say for sure is that if a person does not have a committed attitude toward life in general, because I could have easily made prison my scapegoat, but I had to also learn some things from my parents, from my dad, that I had to do better. So prison is a horrible experience because you miss birthdays, you miss holidays, you miss a whole lot, but you still try to communicate with your child, at least kind of let them know you're in their life. And coming out after they are older, that's just whole nother situation. And most of the time, all the time, you have to pray. And because I'm, a pastor or whatever, that's the main thing. You're going to have to pray. I had to pray to make the right decisions as a father and a husband. I had a girl and a boy, so I had to make sure that I'm doing what's right. And I want to say this too. There's no real blueprint on any of this. We don't know what we're doing for the most part. We take what we know from our parents, and a lot of times they don't know, and because their parents were basically messed up. So in prison is when I learned that I had a lot of hatred and bitterness toward my dad because of how he did us and everything. So I learned some things while I was there and had to implement them when I got out of there. And that basically helped me to be able to function properly, if that makes any sense at all.
I'd like to touch on what the pastor said there. I appreciate you for sharing as well. I'll start off with a question. If I asked everybody, why does a boat float? A lot of people would give me different answers. The buoyancy, the displacement of water, and all those things. But the simplest part of it is a boat floats because it keeps what's on the outside on the outside. There's an old African proverb that says, where there is no enemy within, the enemy outside can do us no harm. That's going to be the basis of where I formulate this thought process on. There's a lot of people with opinions on what a man is or what a father should be, the majority of which are women. Women that have never been men themselves and women that have never been father themselves. And a lot of the times what we see is that women have, mothered boys and tried to train them to be the men that they probably wanted. I had this conversation with my older brother not too long ago that growing up, when it came to dating, my mom taught me how to be the man she wanted. She taught me how to be chivalrous, how to open the door, how to cook, how to clean. But one thing she never taught me was how I deserve to be treated by a woman. So most men, for me, in my perspective, my father's white. So I grew up with another outside perspective of where my parents were thrown together because of the integration of schools. So when you're trying to play this role, to the pastor's point, where we're trying to play a role where we've never read the script, it's very difficult because everybody has an opinion on what a father should be. We don't have that in our culture of being a black man. Nobody has been able to sit us down and say, this is the way a father should do, and he should provide, he should do this, because the history of our people is that it was a struggle for us to provide because we were slaves. Then we were paid unfairly for our wages. So we were thrust into an economy now today to where we are able to provide, but now we're losing the fact where we could be present. So at one point in time where people would bitch about a man being more present, oh, he was a deadbeat because he couldn't provide. And now men today, we're trying to both juggle how do we provide and be present. And I think the pastor will understand this point. When you think about Jacob, his wife was in the back and the wagon giving birth. I believe that Jacob wanted to be in the back comforting his wife. But if he's in the back comforting his wife, who's driving the wagons? And that's what I find myself as being a young African-American man today is I'm out in the corporate world fighting to provide for my kids to have a better future than what I have potential to, but that comes with a cost. And that cost is me being present. So I decided that I would provide so that hopefully that they can end up being present and being a provider, that I would make the sacrifices today that they would benefit from.
Wow.
Thank you, Brandon.
That was incredible. I'm gonna add my tiny little spiel on that, and then I'm done. I think that really everything that they said was amazing. But if we, for me, it has been the great unlearning. I had to unlearn what I thought it looked like or what I felt it should look like. When I tell you, raising those boys in my home literally changed my life, because not only did I see mirrors, one of my friends had to tell me, you're raising yourself, and that's why you're hitting a wall. She was like, that's you all over again, because he was just like me. His question was always why. And that was my question as a child, why? But my mother, being who she was like, you don't get to ask why. I'm the mother. So we have to unlearn a lot of that bad behavior, and we're doing the absolutely best that we can do to change the narrative. To Brandon's point, I working 7 days a week sometimes to make sure that they had, and feeling guilty about that. But I will tell you what I learned, and it was the most important thing I could have learned. Children want consistency, they want structure, and they want unconditional love. When I had to whip them, it was the baby that came and laid his head on my lap and said, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for disappointing you.
It's okay. It's okay.
So when you hear that, you understand that you're getting it right.
Right.
Even though it feels at that moment that is wrong, you know that you're doing something right because they understand why you're doing what you're doing. Mm-hmm. You have to unlearn some of that bad behavior. And it's unfortunate. Like the gentleman said, they did the best that they could, but a lot of that was not necessarily the way. Past all of the ministers on the panel can tell you the Bible says, train up a child in the way it should go.
Right. It does.
When they're old, they won't depart.
Yeah.
We got to wait and see if they get old enough so that we can see if what we put in them comes out.
Yeah.
But we just have to keep being consistent and keep showing up.
Yeah. Can I say one more thing too?
Yes,
because I like what Brother Brandon said, and I want to kind of bring it out a little bit more. We have issues. Black men have issues. Sometimes seem like we forget where we came from. It is my dad was raised in a home. He's 84 now. His dad was raised differently or whatever. So then we go all the way back to Africa. Sometimes we don't like bringing those things up. Mm-hmm. Those things have a great impact on how we live and how we treat our wives, how we treat our children. Sometimes we don't understand that generational stuff that sometimes we don't like to confront or forget about. But all of those things affect us even now. That's why, okay, why did my dad do what he did? Because his dad did the same thing, and his dad was a slave. Are you hearing what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So all of these things, sometimes we forget, okay, we're not like any other race here in America. We can't be any other race. We can only be who we are, but do we know who we are? And do we know where we're headed? And do we know why we are the way we are based on where we came from? So I think and I like what the brother said about training. Training is not just showing. Training is doing it with them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So a lot of the things we don't know. And I'm gonna say this and I'm done. For some reason, we don't ask for help. You understand what I'm saying? There's some other brothers that can probably give me some insight on some things. But for some reason, we don't ask for help. And that's an issue too that we have, whether we got it from slavery or whatever, whether we got it from being a macho man or whatever. We do not ask for help for things that maybe I don't know, so maybe you would know. So let me get some help from you. I don't know everything. I think that's an issue too. I'm done.
I'm gonna tell you why. Oh, my bad. I'm gonna tell you, and this is why a lot of people don't ask for help. For one, we already know the biggest thing is pride.
Yeah.
Especially as a man. But for two, the other biggest thing in the world is that we reflect on what we see. Like we see other people's lifestyles and we'd be like, well, it's kind of like, hey, how can you teach me how to be a businessman if you've never been a businessman? That's the concept that we have, but we don't look that a person may have acquired knowledge and we still can take it. One thing that my mom always say is, especially with scripture, eat the meat, spit out the bones, basically. So we don't never eat the meat and spit out the bones. So we look at another person's lifestyle and we be like, well, dang, they going through heck and high water. So why would I go ask? We always look at the wrong that somebody is spewing out that we see is going on. And we never think that, okay, let me pick out the good pieces that's going on in here. Let me ask them what this man is doing and we can learn from that. That's one of our main issues. We don't extend enough grace to the next person to even ask for that helping hand. And it's going to continue to be like that unless we get things like this right here, where we be vulnerable with each other. We talk about these things, stuff like this. That's the only way to break a lot of these generational curses, these cycles. That's continuously going on is through vulnerability, transparency, and extending that an abundant amount of grace and mercy to each other.
That's good.
Camille, before you go to the next topic, Pastor Walton said something that I guess I knew, but until he said it, it didn't really impact me this way. Like those of us in this generation that have young kids and babies, it's a whole new thing. Like we are the ones that really have to navigate through this parenting thing and really raise these kids the right way. Because everyone else before us has so many different challenges. We're at the best place, not where we want to be, but we're at the best place we've ever been as Black men in America. Right. So we have a huge, huge weight on our shoulders to raise these sons and daughters a certain way now, because we have the opportunity to change the perception, to change the trajectory of their lives, the things that our parents and our grandparents couldn't do for us. We have the opportunity to do that for these kids now. So it puts a lot of weight on the father's shoulder, a good father's shoulder, that a lot of people don't always take into consideration when they're looking at us as dads. They just kind of say, oh, okay, so this is dad. But it's a whole different responsibility in 2022.
Yeah, that's good.
That's really good. I first of all, you guys are saying a lot. I'm not really saying too much because I really want you guys to have the floor to express your thoughts and feelings. I'm kind of here just to kind of be a facilitator. But something, as you guys were talking, I started thinking about my own father and where we were in our relationship when he passed away. And there was such a chunk of time where I was so angry at him for him not being there. And then when I met him, when I was in college, freshman year at MTSU, he just out of the blue called me. And so that spring break, I went up there. But it was very awkward. And as I began to go out of my teenage years into young adulthood, even though he had my phone number, I had his, and every time I would try to talk to him, because he wanted to just pick up and just not address him not being there. And I wanted to have that conversation. And every time I did, he would get so mad at me and so belligerent at me. And it hurt my feelings so much. I would just cry. And my brother would attempt to be the mediator conversation. And so when he died, we were not speaking because he did not want to have that talk. And the last time I saw him, I went up to Ohio. It was, I want to say right before I joined the Navy. And we went out to dinner. We went to Papa Do's to eat. And he had a man cave upstairs. And he would never come down and talk to me. And I was right there. And in the car, he would never talk. And my father was a big man. He was like 6'4", and I'm 5'4", I'm short. And I'm like this big guy. He just would not talk to me. And I was so angry. And it wasn't until after he died, and I was still holding on to the anger. I was still just mad. And God was like, you have to understand he experienced some trauma and things throughout his childhood, even being married and having you. And so he didn't know how to communicate through his trauma. And so when I was talking to my brother about it, he was like, you scared daddy. And I was like, what? He was like, daddy is scared of you. And I was like, why? He was like, he just is. And it was because if you see my mother, you see me. I look like my mama with makeup on. And the first thing I remember him saying to me when he saw me was like, my mother's name is Crystal. And he goes, man, you look so much like Chris. But he had a ghost, in his face. And he just backed up from me. And I was like, what is this about? And it wasn't until God started dealing with me about that. It was like, it was just some trauma he had. And so in our conversation, I asked him, I said, well, you weren't here. Why weren't you here? And he told me, he said, I loved you. And I'm thinking in my mind, I was like, no, you don't love me because you weren't here. He said, I had to be away from you. And I said, why? He said, because I loved you so much, I stayed away. And I was like, well, what do you mean? He said, because if I was there, I would have damaged you. He said, because I loved you so much, I stayed away from you because I didn't want to damage you and hurt you. And it didn't make sense to me until honestly, since the quarantine, because, in the pandemic, we've had time to go through our thoughts and just thinking about how he was. And it was like, it just made sense. And I was like, he's right. I was the one good thing he did right in his life. I was the good thing in his life that he had, and he didn't want to mess it up. So he stepped away in order to protect me or not harm me. And so can you guys kind of talk about how you guys love your kids through your trauma, even when they don't understand everything or they might not understand your past? But can you guys kind of touch and just unpack about being a parent and being a Black man through your pain?
I actually want to touch on that real quick too. I think this is something that that God revealed to me at one point in time. What you said was very important about as far as a man damaging, and I use me for an example, and I do this a lot of times in my music. And my son is 8 now, and there was a point in time, he's 7 actually. There was a point in time where I was separated from him probably for about 3 years. I was fighting. I was like, God, I'm a good father. Why am I separated from him and stuff like this? And what he revealed to me was that I needed some healing. I was damaged in so many ways that the time that I would have spent with my son just physically, as we talk about, actually would have damaged him spiritually in a lot of ways. That was ways that I didn't understand. He would have relived my entire life, things that I didn't want him to relive, basically because my selfish desire to be there. I mean, I want to be there, but some of us need to be healed in certain ways in order to be the proper parent to our kids, and we don't understand that. It sounds good to always be there, but if you're not healed properly, you damage your kids more than anything because you never unbagged anything before you got to them. Like the fact of the matter is, let's being honest is that if anybody has, we're gonna use it. If anybody has intercourse, the likelihood of them having a child. I mean, God is not going to stop that. The likelihood of them having a child is, they may have it or whatever. He didn't say, hey, I'm gonna just do this and do this. So point blank period is before we get to even a relationship, or we get to the point where we start thinking about, hey, let's build a family. Let's start thinking about what we need to heal from so we can be the proper fathers to our kids. Because if we haven't healed, we're going to damage and tarnish that family. It's going to look just like what you was talking about, Camille. It's going to reflect very, very huge. And the only thing the kid is going to think of is, why is dad not doing this? Why is dad not doing that? And not understanding, or why is dad gone? Sometimes we don't even understand that God is protecting you, honestly. A lot of people who's like, oh, the father not crap and the father this, that, and the third. You don't understand that father that now it wasn't there, that isn't present at the moment. There's a lot of healing that's going on. And that's why they always come towards the end most of the time, is because there were some things that needed to be fixed. And God was really just trying to protect people. Like, hey, if I allow this to happen right now, you'll be damaged just like him.
Hey, just a man, that's great.
That's great. That's awesome.
I wanted to talk about man. Okay, it was one period where before I left to go to school, my dad God wouldn't let me leave his house until my dad told me. He said, "I didn't raise you, God raised you," and I thought that was big of him for him to admit that. But one thing I do know is that when my son was born, I wasn't there. So to piggyback off what the gentleman just said, it was so important because I had to get my life together before I can actually even think about being a father. And so one thing my son did is he ended up growing me up. I mean, I was out there, at the parties. I was, ladies, man, I was doing, I was kicking it. But my son made me realize I had to grow up. I had to get my life together. And so I didn't want to be a carbon copy of my dad, because my dad was about women. He was about kicking it. He was in those streets. He was doing this thing. So with my son, I had to make sure that I wanted to be a good leader for him. So what I did was I looked at my dad and I learned from his mistakes. And so what I did is I ended up going to college. I had an opportunity to go to college. So I raised my son while I was away in college. I worked 2 jobs. I was in North Carolina. I was working 2 jobs, running track, and I was called a deadbeat dad. I left Chattanooga, went to another city, and that's one thing I think we don't tell our young men who are fathers who are trying to do better. We don't encourage them to get out of their situation, because we may be still fighting with the baby mama, or we get in a holding pattern trying to fix the relationship. And the main part is we need to be fixing our relationship with ourselves, with God, and also with our son. So I just think it's important for us to really kind of teach and talk to our men about really getting out of those positions and those situations so they can be better and be stronger and not get held down in those situations, in those cities. It's okay to leave. It's okay to get out.
Yeah, I want to speak on that a little bit. 2 things. First, Camille, a lot of that with your father, I think as men, as we're growing and fixing ourselves and healing and becoming better, it's very hard for us to get confronted again. You know what I mean? So if we've already confronted ourselves, then you're coming and we're working on our healing, and then you're coming and you're trying to rehash that healing. And sometimes it's very, 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 very tough for us to be like, okay, let me take this criticism up again. Let me hear, how I hurt you again, when I already know how I hurt you. And I've already went and tried to do the work of healing so that I can move on and move forward and be a better man. But then now you're wanting to come and talk to me about what I did back then when I'm already healing. Sometimes that's really tough on us. And it's something that we got to fix, right? So we got to be able to hash that out if we've hurt someone, especially our kids, to go back and have those conversations. But sometimes that's tough on us. And then the second thing is, like I said, I have 3 types of sons. I have my stepson, who's my oldest. My middle boy is adopted. And I have my baby boy, he's 9 months, who's my first biological child. So with my 2 older sons, I came into their lives later. Like I came into my stepson's life when he was about 9, and I came into my adopted son's life when he was 4. But it wasn't until I had my biological son that I started to see myself in him. and I started to see some of the traumas that I had. I started to see some of the behaviors that I had, and then it made me be like, okay, let's nip this in the bud, because I see that, I see that damage, and I put that damage in him, and now let me fix that damage, and let me fix it, because he can't fix it right now. He doesn't know it. But I could see that anger in him. Let me give him a little bit more affection. I see that frustration in him. I see that strong will. I see that pride in him. And he's only 9 months, but you can see those things in just the way they move and certain mannerisms. So when you start to look in the mirror of your own son, your own child, then you start to unpack the damage that you have. And I would say, like, for the last 9 months, I've become a better man because my son is here. And I don't want him to, back to the point of we want our kids to be better. I don't want him to grow up with the same grudge holding and the same pride that I have. I want him to be better. And if I could see that maybe, he might have a quick temper, how can I fix that? I can catch it early. What can I do to help him control his temper? What tools can I give him to control that temper versus the way we grew up? Don't come in here crying. If you cry, I'm gonna give you something to cry about. We all heard that, right? So like there's things that I can see, like, oh shoot, like that's damage, that's trauma that I have that I'm projecting onto him, and I need that fixed in him. I need that healed in him before it becomes a problem. So I think we all, like, once we have our kids, we start to look in the mirror, and then it starts that healing process and accelerates it. Because we can see it.
Yeah. Listen, Camille, I like, as a fellow 9 month older, because my son is 9 months as well. Like I can relate, man. Like you see these kids like developing, and you see them growing right before your eyes. Like even with like my mom and like some of my cousins, like we FaceTime and talk. They be like, "Why are you talking to him like that? Or he just a baby? Why are you doing this?" I see certain things in my son already. And as a parent, I feel like it's your responsibility when you start seeing things in the kids, no matter how young they are, to start following the proper steps to make sure that you're fixing certain things or cultivating certain things. The one thing that I feel that parents didn't do enough when I was a kid that I plan on doing with my children is, if I'm wrong, I'm going to apologize. I'm going to acknowledge that I was wrong. And I remember growing up, like, waiting at the door to see my dad, and him not showing up. Me waiting for hours and hours and hours and hours. And then, the next time waiting for hours and hours and him never showing. But whenever he finally did show up, I was very happy to see him. But there was never an explanation. There was never an apology. There was never anything not to, I think, help heal some of the pain and some of the hurt. So I think when you grow up and your parents are like, I'm the parent, you're the child. So since you're the child, like, it's almost like you don't deserve certain amounts of respect, because you're the child. But that's not true. Even with my 9 month old, like, if I'm sometimes I fuss at him here and there, and then sometimes I feel like I fussed at him and I was a little too, I'd be like, I'm sorry, bro. I'm sorry, buddy. Like, I'm sorry. Because I just think it's important for kids to know that they deserve to be apologized to as well, and they deserve explanations when it's necessary. I think it's important to be to be a disciplinarian and to parent your children the right way. But I still also think it's important to make sure that we as parents acknowledge when we make mistakes.
That's good. That's good.
That's good.
I do think that is.
I'm sorry. Well, I was, you guys have made some amazing points. One of the things that I know for sure is that one of the gentlemen mentioned something about, well, you actually mentioned it, Camille, your father saying the reason why that he did not come because he would have hurt you. And my father's last days, I said, Daddy, I asked him two things. I said, are you proud of me? He said, I couldn't be more proud of you, son. And I said, well, Daddy, why did you leave? And I said, why didn't you reach out to me for those 18 years? He said, because your grandfather didn't like me. He said, so to protect your mother, I left. And so for all of those years that I thought that I was the reason why my father left, it had nothing to do with me. It wasn't my fault. He did it to protect me. But the thing is that I had to literally, if I had not asked, I would have never known. Wow. Because my mother didn't have the power to speak to that. Up until then I would have always, it would have always been a mystery, but I knew that his time was winding up, and we would have our time of quietness, and in those times we shared a lot, and I would just say, Daddy, tell me about this, tell me about that, and he would just talk. He would just, because he just talked, because at that point we established that I didn't want to hurt him, I didn't want to make him, repay anything that wasn't there, because I made a choice that I wanted my father. A lot of people said I never knew that was. I said that's my dad. But then it wasn't until 3 days before he died we took a picture together, and I realized why my mother was so angry and frustrated with me about my dad. I looked just like him.
Yeah,
I didn't see it until 3 days before he passed.
Wow.
Did anyone else want to add to that before we went on to the next question? That was really good, Ricardo. No? Okay. So my next question is, as men, you deal with so many different things, and quietly there may be some frustrations. What is something that you feel like more mothers or people knew about Black fathers, as far as what you may need to kind of relieve some of the tension of fatherhood? And then second part is, what will probably be one of your greatest frustrations since being a father?
I'll go with this one. I'm gonna go and hit you with something real quick. I'm sure my man can appreciate this one. There's a scripture that says it's better for a man to sleep out in the wilderness than to be in the house with a contentious woman. And contentious means argumentative. So let me put it in layman's terms: stop bitching all the time. First off and foremost, we don't mind you having an issue with what we do, because the truth is we have issues with what we do ourselves. Like if we know we mess up, we get on ourselves enough. We talk to our boys about it, like, oh man, yeah, I'm tripping, ain't I? But we can't always let you know. There's another scripture that says her husband's heart does safely trust in her. That's because we need to know that if we tell you something, that when you get mad, you won't use what we told you against us in a fit of rage. If we tell you we're having some struggles, we don't need you to have one of those moments where you just use that against us, because then we gonna stop talking to you. So being a father, the first and foremost thing for us is, if you ain't never been a man, shut up about what a man is, because we're still trying to figure it out ourselves, okay? And if you ain't never been a father, you should doubly shut up again, because you ain't never been one of those. And I understand that you have struggles, but we are struggling trying to do it. It's easy to say from the stands what a man should do if he was in the game. Like, man, he should jump. He should shoot this jump shot. You ain't never been in a game before. You never know what it's like to have 30,000 people in the fans and a guy defending you and the coach yelling at you. So just be quiet, sit back and watch greatness happens. And when my man Prescott said he's trying to be a Superman, I understand why you say that, but I prefer to be Clark Kent and have my Superman moments, because I'm going to fall. I'm going to struggle, and I'm going to fall short of the mark. But as my man Paul wrote, I count not myself to have apprehended it all, but this one thing I do, forgetting about my past and pressing forward to the future of the mark of the higher calling that God has put on my life. Yes, I have an upward calling, but a downward craving, and I will stick to that thing. And that's it for me.
Mic drop.
He let it in that. He was ready. So I'm gonna say this not to be petty, but like, women feel because they carried the baby that they're the more important parent. Or they're the dominant parent because they carried the baby for 9 months. I think it's a beautiful thing. I appreciate the fact that is a part of the process, but fathers are equally as important, and the seed grows into the person. So technically the seed comes out of us and it grows inside of the woman, inside of her egg. So technically the person starts with the father, and we share it with the mother, and then it develops and bonds together and grows into the baby. So my thing with women is that just because you're the mother, don't always downgrade the dad. And I think even when you have a good dad or let's say you're not together, and a present father who wants to be a part of the child's life, sometimes the mother feels like she just has more authority because she's the mom. And I think that's a misconception, and I think a lot of that leads to why some dads are not as present as they initially may have wanted to be. Especially if they're not with the mom anymore.
Hold on, before somebody else go, Terrence, Miss Camille, sorry, I just want to say this again, because Terrence, you bring up another great point, guys.
Yeah.
when he brought up the thing of the good seed, there's another scripture that says, "As farmer went out scattering good seed, all the seed was good first and foremost." And depending on the level of return you got, depended on the soil. So women, if you mad that the return ain't good, maybe use some trash ass soil. And I'm sorry to say it because it said it was good seed scattered everywhere. But some seed fell amongst the rocky soil. That's a woman that's hard-headed. It didn't yield anything. Some seed fell amongst shallow soil and the sun burnt it up. You ain't no good. And I'm sorry to say this, but if you believe in that word like you say you do, take accountability for what it says that you are. Work on being some good soil that can produce a good product, because I know that we're all of us are good seed. That's it.
He on tonight, and I'm
let me go because I got 2 good baby mamas. So, I do want to say I do have I do co-parent with my adopted son, and his mom is amazing. And one thing I will commend her on is the issues we've had never got portrayed to our son. We always kept those compartmentalized. So, if we had an issue, if whatever our relationship issues were, we still co-parented, and we co-parent well. And we communicate every single day, and we probably think each other are disgusting. Like, we probably would never look at each other the same way at all. But as parents, like when one thing I will implore women to do is once your relationship changes. So I was once your significant other, and then when we've ended our relationship and I'm no longer your significant other, now your mindset just needs to switch that I am just the father. And if you don't look at me as your significant other or an ex or anything else besides your child's father, then it will change the mindset that you have towards me. So one thing I commend my baby mama in is now she sees me as just my son's father, and that's it. And so the only conversations we have are about our son. The only decisions we make, whether it be if we're not seeing eye to eye or whatever the case, if it's not for the betterment of our kid or of our child, then we don't do it. And it may be detriment to one of us. It may be a compromise to one of us. But if it's better for our son, we agree upon it. And then to my significant other currently and my new son's mom, we co-parent very well, and we have very different parenting styles. But I am your significant other, so then it comes biblical where I'm the head of this household, and so whatever I lead you as my church, and a part of my church is my kids, and so I will lead this flock how I need to lead this flock. And if you fall in line, and you fall not in a demeaning way, fall in line, but if you follow my lead, then we gon' be good and put, in the sports term, put the team on my back, and we're gonna win and lose off of my decisions. And let that be my decisions that we win and lose on. And you just help me out and be the supporting cast that I need you to be. And she does a really good job of that. And then when it comes to all of us parenting together, because we're a blended family, if we are always thinking, if everything is compartmentalized, my baby mama no longer sees me as the ex. She no longer sees my wife as someone who took her man or whatever drama could come out of that. She only sees me as my son's father. Then there's nothing that they got to argue about. There's no drama. There's no issues. There's just us co-parenting and being the best parents we can for our kids. So if any lesson that I can give to women is compartmentalize your relationships. Once one relationship ends, then now you got to see that person in a totally different way. Because if a pro player goes from being a player to a coach, he now has to be seen differently. So I'm no longer a player on your team. I'm now a coach on this team. So I have a different authority or a different role in your life. And so I think that's the biggest lesson I can give. But Brandon, you on point. But I just had to come soften it up a little bit.
They better learn to pick up their dribble and pivot, Prescott. You out of dribbles. You better get in your triple threat game.
I want to come from a different perspective on this right here because of just the amount of time of growth that I had spiritually. I definitely got to say this right here. most everything that we do, like y'all said, we got to unlearn. So most everything that especially a woman does, and this is not to, help women or anything in this area. Right now this is about the men. What I will say is that everything that we do, or that they've learned, they've seen, whether it's through society, whether it's through their homegirl, whether it's through their mom, whatever the case may be. These are the things that they do. These are the things that they've seen. So I do agree with a lot of the things that were said, especially that, the woman, you're not just the most important part of the child's life. Yes, we in order for that child to be made, the man has to plant the seed. I definitely agree with, hey, just kind of relax on the frustrations that you may have with as fathers. We're still trying to figure it out, like you said. But this is, I guess, the biggest thing to this right here is for both sides, both parties. I guess we just have to really, we have to extend that grace to each other. We don't know what another person's learned throughout the lifestyle. It's hard to tell a person to stop doing something that they've been doing for 20 something odd years. And seen, or if they even pick that up as a child, like that. Childs are sponges. So it's hard to tell a person that, hey, stop doing this if they've picked this up an extensive amount of years. And this is not to discredit even what you just said, King, about as far as like changing the perspective mentally of what a person should do once they, a woman, once they get out of that relationship type stuff. We created soul ties with this person. So once we create a soul tie with this person, it's very hard to remove that mental, that mindset. And this ain't a player on the team where they just shift to another position and they gotta just jump to that. This is something so deeper than that, and so we gotta understand that right there. Like that. Hey, this person has learned something and acquired something over however many years, and we can't expect them to change that in 5 years or so. We just have to buckle down, talk, communicate. That's the biggest thing. Communicate that, hey, this is what I'm doing as a father right here. If you don't like this, let's talk about it later or whatever the case may be. Don't do none of this stuff out in front of people. Don't try to make yourself above what's going on. Just that communication level is the biggest thing, the deepest thing too, to help create that functioning co-parenting family, or even that functioning marriage that you're in now, whatever that may be. And that's to anybody.
Yeah. Camille, I just quick story. Like I think sometimes women can damage their sons worse than the fathers can damage their sons by not being present. And I'm gonna tell you how. My dad, 3 sons, right? All had different moms. My mom, my oldest brother's mom, never badmouthed our dad, was always open. Whenever he came, we could go. If he didn't come, we were sad, but when he came, we could go. Our middle brother, he'll pick up our middle brother. His mom was totally different. She used him as a weapon. He didn't pay child support. My brother couldn't come with us. So for Thanksgiving, for Christmas, we go get my brother. My dad and his mom fuss. He stay home. He watching his 2 brothers go off with their dad. So getting older, our middle brother grew up with a lot of issues, and he shows up differently in the world than we do. And I think that has a lot to do with how his mom was with my dad when we were growing up. So women really have to think about how their actions can affect their child when they're utilized. Let's say the dad might not be paying child support. He may not be doing everything he's supposed to do, but when he's present, and when he's trying to represent and be a father, you have to still allow him to do that. And you have to let your son see you allow his dad to be the dad. Because then that man will grow up with all this resentment, all these issues. He has resentment towards us as his brothers, but it's misguided stuff. So women, please understand that no matter what the man has done you, it is all about the child, especially if it's a man. It's all about your son, and making sure that you allow him, like we were talking about earlier, create his own narrative of his father. Because our dad made mistakes, and me and my older brother knew all of them, but we still had a relationship with him. So,
can I ask a question real quick?
Yeah.
What? So, this is it's a loaded question, but let's say you and a woman have a child, and it's both of you guys' first child. What makes them more qualified than us? Because I always feel like there's a stigma that all of a sudden this mom is more qualified as a mother than we are as a father. When we both have never been parents before.
They looking at the nurturing portion. A lot of the times, the system is looking at the nurturing portion of what the woman can provide. You know, obviously, breastfeeding is one of the biggest things they're looking at, and we don't provide that. And just to be honest, like you said, we're hunters. So I mean, like we go out there with the breadwinners. You know, it's supposed to be, and women are naturally. It's just things that women are naturally given by God that nurtures, that helps them be nurturers. So if you're looking at it from that level, most of the people in the world who they're looking at it from a woman is naturally a nurturer, because you got to remember when she get into the home, you know, if you give a woman $20 and tell her to go into the grocery store, she gonna make a meal for a week. You know, that's gonna make sure that's all they got. You give a man $20, all he think about is, dang, that steak look good, you know, just for the day, and the rest of the week ain't gonna be too good for nobody. So but that's what it boils down to. They looking at how they're natural nurturers as opposed to a man, and that's the.
I have a play on words. I think some men are protectors, women are nurturers. It's the same thing with a different emotion. For the best way I can explain it, a protector is going to make sure things are done the way they're supposed to be done. It may not be as soft all the time. It may not be as caressed all the time, but it's going to happen, and you're not going to let it fall. A woman is a nurturer, but it may be with a little more sugar, you know, and a little more sweetness. But I think ultimately men are still nurturers. It's just perceived differently because it may not always be mushy type of nurturing, you know, because sometimes I think dads are better with the kids than the mom, but the just get the credit because she's like, oh, I love this, my baby. The baby crying, you know, she's like, it's okay, baby. We might be like, stop all that crying. You know what I'm saying? But that's what we don't care. It's just like, you cry, stop all that crying. You know, so.
But like we said, that's in the beginning stage, though. In the beginning stage, they're looking at it from a nurturing perspective. Once they get past that, where they can eat anything they want, you know, hey, dad is up. You know what it is. Don't want to be around. They having fun. So that's just in the beginning stage. That's all they're looking at is that beginning, that 1 to 3 stage or something like that.
Well, I think it's deeper than that. I think it's looking at if you told them about your past history of your father and things that you've gone through. I think they're looking at what you have gone through and what you didn't get. And so I think that's the value. They put the value on what you did not get growing up. And so then they automatically discount you to be a father or to be the best father in that situation.
Like, how can you do that if you didn't get it? I see
what
you're saying.
Well, if you think about it, we talk and we tell our mate everything. You know, we tell stuff we don't know what they're going to use against us.
Yeah, pillow talk. So it's a couple things I want to hit on real quick, so we can move on. The first thing was children are not weapons, and Terrence, you hit on it first. Children are not weapons, and I think that's the one thing, if I could share, is that, you know, stop using the child as a pawn, and it's not a ping pong ball. The child is not a ping pong. You can't throw the child back and forth whenever you're frustrated, you're not getting what you want and getting what you need. That child is going to be affected one way or the other. What I heard when everyone was speaking is that the women also are dealing with father issues. They're also dealing with some trauma as it relates around father. So we can't necessarily expect for them to always know. Person asked the question, what is it that makes a woman a more authority or feel that she's more of authority? Because she carried that child for almost 10 months. She feels more connected to the child because that child grew inside of her. Yes, the seed was planted. Yes, the egg was there, but that child grew inside of her. So there's a bond that I was told this weekend is not always natural. Some of those bonds have to be formed, but most women literally bond with their child in the first and second trimester because that thing is growing inside of them. It is a part of them. It is literally growing out, is growing inside their bodies. That's that connection that they feel. That's what makes them feel that they have an authority over what that child needs, what that child wants, that kind of thing. But the other part is this: they are literally navigating through some past traumas as well, because we know, as we've all heard, we dealt with fathers that some were present, some were just providers, some were not, some were nurturers, some were did the best they could, but they did the best they could with what they knew, and that's what we have to remember.
Okay, can I kind of throw some things in
Pastor.
there? Everybody's really saying a lot of good things, but I wanted to, from the I guess, to set another page for the women. Let me say it like that, because we've been talking about the women, doing whatever. We have to understand. I just celebrated 40 years of marriage. 40.
Congratulations.
Okay. Now we got married in 2 years after we got married. I went to prison for 3 years. Okay, so here we are now, 40 years. Now I'm throwing it out there like this. Okay, before we do premarital counseling before I marry somebody. Now, here's the thing that we both have to understand. By the time we get the women, they've already been damaged. But by the time we say I do, or we embrace them as a girlfriend or whatever, they've already gone through damages, not only with their dads, but with the other guys that have been in their lives. They have some issues. So it's hard for them to trust you to even stay there, because other men have left them. So they have a different kind of a mindset when it comes to you, because, okay, you're going to leave just like everybody else left. So I got guards up. So here this child comes. So we're trying to do this child thing together, but we have not, somebody even mentioned this, we have not dealt with her issues and have not dealt with my issues. So how are we going to raise a child when we both got issues? And these issues are hidden until we say I do. Because once we say I do, then here comes all the issues in a relationship. Then we bring a child into that. So this is going to be very difficult to bring a child in the middle of chaos when both people, the husband and the wife, especially blacks, the wives are so messed up. The women are so messed up, and the men are so messed up, but in different ways. So again, nobody comes with an instruction book. We don't know what we're doing. We have to, like somebody just said, communicate. If we don't communicate this thing properly, we're gonna mess up every child that comes through our path. That's what we're gonna do, because we haven't gotten ourselves together. So I just, I want to throw this out there. I gotta recognize that woman has already been damaged by her dad and by other men, and their heart is already damaged. Their heart is already broken. So what are we gonna do? We're gonna embrace her and still be upset with the things that she's gone through. She's taking some stuff out on us that we didn't do. We have to understand that. That's why communication is so important. I know that I didn't do this. I know you're talking to me like I'm the other guy. I got to understand that. What I have learned to do in these 40 years, my wife was damaged already, damaged by her dad, damaged by other relationship. I had to still love her. And somebody threw a scripture. If you want to be real scripturally forceful here, the Bible says, husbands, love your wife. Husbands, love your wife. So are men to love their wives as Christ loved the church. That's all the way through the Bible. It never tells the wife to love her husband, but it always tells the husband to love the wife. Why? Because men have that connection that don't normally fall into love. Most men lust, but not love. So if he's telling us to do something that is not our character, so that love there has to bring that. You have to love that woman from her pain. But if you can't do that, that's why people leave. Men just leave because they can't deal with the issues that she's going through. So they just get their hat and coat and head out. But now you build her some more issues on top of her, on top of the issue that she's already had. So the next man that she gets gonna have to deal with the issues that you left her with. Yep. So we got to understand what's going on here, and it's a whole lot more than just baby mamas or than babies in the middle or whatever. We got to understand what's going on, and there's more to it than what we are than top surface.
So, Pastor, we got to love the hell out of them.
That's it. Hey, you want to put it like that? Yes. But we gotta love them, and that's hard to do. That's hard to do sometimes if we don't understand what they're going through.
Right.
Yeah. As black men, again, The women have already been damaged by the time you get them. You got to understand that they're not just coming into this thing. They've been damaged already. Okay, they carry things. We can just be okay with certain things, but they carry things in their spirit. Their hearts have been damaged. Their spirits have been damaged. Okay, now we come in and we expect them to just pick up and move on. They already hurt. If we don't understand that, like he said, we got to love them past that pain. We got to. Are we capable as men of doing that? Or are we just going to kick them to the curb or fuss at them, not understanding? If we're not capable of loving them, guess what? We're going to kick them right to the curb like all the other men do. Okay, so we got to understand our position. You can't bring a child in here if we don't understand each other.
So what do we do? Excuse me, Camille. Let me ask one more question. So what do we do with the damage we cause? So like, yeah, they're already coming in the damage, but what if we do some cheating, we cause some damage, and now whether the woman chooses to stay with you and you're trying to raise that child and but that mother's still damaged, or you guys break up and now you're dealing with a baby mama situation, and we know that we have caused some of that damage. What do we do to combat that, to make sure that everything runs smoothly?
Well, I'll take that. So the first thing I think we need to do is we got to heal ourselves, because you got to take the dirt out your eye before we can take it out of anybody else's eye. So I think my thing is what I did with women that I know I may have hurt, I may have did some low down stuff. I had to go back and try to make amends with those relationships. I tried to heal because I understood. I got to the point in my mindset of understanding that I may be holding them back from moving forward in their relationship with their husband. So there's things that, like he said, they carry those things. And so I had to be mature in my spirit to make sure that I went back to those women and I touched base with those women, not to lust after them, but to make sure. And even if they did not say, okay, I appreciate it, or they didn't take my I'm sorry, I did it. I did it. I did it for me. I made sure that I did the right thing. So I think that's the start.
Yeah, it is.
It is.
That's
accountability is so important in any relationship. Accountability is important. And I think that, I totally agree with you, Kevin, that we have to be accountable for our actions, and not only our actions, but our responses to what's happening. One of the things that I'm learning is grace is necessary for everyone. Unfortunately, we think grace runs out when we got it, and nobody else can get grace. But grace is necessary for everybody, and in every situation. And so, a lot of times when I am staunch or feeling you had no right to make me feel that way, the Holy Spirit will convict me and say, but you were very unkind to that person that you cut off yesterday on the highway. So how can you feel that way? And so it's really important that we understand that we are spiritual persons dealing with other spirits. And we have to be very kind and allow grace to fit in those spaces that are broken and those spaces that are damaged, and allow God to really mend the fences. And it's not always easy. It's a process, but accountability is where you begin with that.
Yeah, that's right. That's good.
I would just say, my fault, first.
No, sir. Go ahead, King. You got it.
No, I was going to say, because his question seemed like when it's talking about when we said living down lower, the stuff that we do wrong, or what was it that the word that you used? Just we're living foul.
Yeah. The damage we cause.
The damage that we cause from living foul. We need to determine, in my perspective, what living foul is, because there's a lot of cultures blending right now. I'm going to bring up my man Solomon that had 600 wives and 300 concubines. The teaching to him wasn't that he couldn't have all them women. The teaching was that all these women came from different cultures. So when he tried to merge all those together, when it says that Solomon was the richest, wisest king ever, the Bible says with much wisdom comes much sorrow. That the more you know better, the more you now know that you have to do better. And then you regret that you know better because you don't want to act better. So when it comes to living foul, I think that you have to develop what that is going to be in your relationships. What's off limits? Because this man, David, Solomon's daddy, killed a man and stole his wife. I think y'all know the story is what I'm talking about. And then they still had a family after that. There were still great things that came from him living foul. Now, his other son, Absalom, tried to kill him. That's one of the results of that union. But you just have to recognize you have to determine what's foul to you and stop letting other people determine what that is. Don't let them put their cultural perspectives on you and make you a slave or a subservient to their thoughts of who you are. That's what I want to say.
Good. That's good, man. That's good, Brandon. That's good.
I'm gonna keep lobbing these up to Brandon.
I just don't like when other people try to tell me what living foul is. That's them trying to put their cultural perspective on me, and I'm not going to be a slave to their thoughts of who I am. It's not going to happen.
But a whole nother Camille, write that down. That's another podcast. That's
What is living foul on the Speak Her podcast?
that could be broke down some more. I know he got some more that he want to break down.
Man.
Let me lob one more.
You know you have my intro, so
I know I got you.
Let me lob one more up. So I don't know if any of us are. I don't have any daughters. I only have sons. But if any of us raise daughters, how much responsibility do we have as fathers to help mold great mothers?
I got a daughter, so amazing. I will say this right here. I think one of the biggest things that I'm learning, and a lot of people always say this. I had a guy ask me the other day. We're gonna leave that conversation alone. One thing that I know that's good is that what he told me was that one thing that I'm learning right now is to actually teach daughters to be daughters. Actually teach them to be women. Like, as a man, I know we got this whole big old thing that we know what we do and we know what we do to women, and we don't want our daughters to encounter those things. So we try to push them to another perspective, if you know what I'm saying. We try to make them hang out with the homeboys and the cousins and teach them all, and we damage them like that. Like, naturally we got to first of all, you got to come to understanding of knowing what a woman's supposed to be. And when you have a daughter, once you know what God has set women to do, you gotta cut out your emotions of what you think is what you would want your daughter to be and stuff like that. And you gotta say, look, I gotta raise you to be the best mother woman possible. This is how I gotta raise you, because if I raise you any other way, I'm gonna damage you, and you're gonna teach another young lady that like this, and you're gonna teach another young lady like this, and this is gonna be a bunch of damaging people. So that's the one thing that I tell the mother of my child all the time. She'd be like, well, what are you going to do when our daughter get older? I want her to be truthful with me. I want her to be able to say, Dad, I can talk to you about these things right here, because you're not judging me. You understand as a teenager, this is what comes with these right here. You understand the lifestyle. All I want to do is be able to mold her to be a great woman. Obviously a man can't teach a woman how to be a woman, but we can definitely give guidelines on certain things and to help in those areas. The same way a woman can't teach a man how to be a man, they can only give guidelines in certain areas. Like somebody said earlier, I forgot who it was, but they definitely said, they taught you chivalry, things that they wanted from a man, and those are attributes that's really good, so that's the only thing that we can do as a man is teach, give them guidelines on what a woman, letting a woman be a woman, basically, nothing else.
Mm-hmm. So like I have a son, obviously, but first I said I didn't want any daughters. I only wanted a son. Now that I have a son, I'm like, okay, I want one more. I want it to be a girl. But my thing is, I've always had this thing in my mind with women. I have a lot of girl cousins. I grew up around a lot of women, and I think ultimately the best thing you can do as a dad, on top of everything he just said, is love your daughter. Make your daughter feel special. Make her affirm who she is from a very young age, so that when she becomes dating age, she's not going to allow another man to treat her any kind of way, because her daddy loved her. Her daddy told her she was beautiful. Her daddy treated her with a certain amount of respect. So she's not going to allow any other man to degrade her because of the respect that was instilled in her about herself from her dad. So for me, when I do have a daughter, that's my mindset of how I want to treat my daughter. I want her to, from a young age, know she's a queen, know that she's to be respected, know that she's beautiful, know all those things. Because I think sometimes when girls grow up with not having that father figure and not having that love from a man, then any other man can step into their lives and tear their lives apart and take advantage of them. So I think as a black man and as a black father, the strongest thing we have in our lives that we can give to our daughters is our love and acceptance, and teach them affirmations about themselves.
Now that is absolutely good, and it is absolutely right. I like the chivalry thing. Make them know that they are beautiful, they loved, and stuff like that. And you got to show them how you treat their mom. All of that matters. They need to know how a man is supposed to treat a woman by how you treat your wife. All of this is visual. These are necessary things. I like what you said. I took my daughter out a few times, and I opened the door for her. I put out a seat for her. I did all those things that a man should do. So I told her, if a man's not doing this for you, you don't need it. He needs to treat you like a queen.
The right one. He ain't the right one.
Right.
So what do you do if you're not with your daughter's mother? What ways do you instill that when you're not in a relationship with their mom?
I was just finna add on top of what you said before we go jump to that next question real quick. I was just gonna add that even with the brothers though, I'm not gonna lie, I'm gonna be honest with y'all. My little brother is like 18 now. I punch my little brother when he don't open up the door for my sister. So, and I let him know, like, hey, not to encourage anybody, nobody, but I let him know, like, hey, like, show her these things right here, because what happens is, even just not dad doing it, even when dad doing it, but cousins and stuff like that, she needs to know a long list of men who's actually doing it. It's not just dad, because she's not going to see that happen at school, or she's not going to see that happen outside of certain areas, but she getting a long list of men doing this, cousins, brothers, and stuff like that, treating her right, and I tell my brother that, I said, would you want somebody beating on your sister? Would you want somebody doing anything like this? Because if you treat her like this, she'll expect that. She'll think it's okay, once she get around other men. Just even if daddy just loving her, she's still going to say, hey, my brother did this, and I see my uncles or cousins or whatever. So I that's what I did. I'm not saying that that's the correct thing to do, but I definitely, hey, if he ain't opening up the door for her, even my mom, I put him in the head, like, he ain't pumping gas.
That's what I'm saying.
I think that's real, because I feel like all of us were raised by our moms. It seems like the consensus, we were all raised by our moms. And so a lot of times with Black men, because we've been raised by our moms, we will treat our mom amazing. But then, like you said, our sisters, we may not do the same, or our daughters, we may not do the same. But it's always a running saying with women, like, make sure they treating their mom right, and then they go treat you right. But we gotta also, it extends past our mothers, like it extends to our daughters, to our sisters, to make sure that they have that example as well, because we hold a big responsibility of raising up the next mothers, and not raising difficult baby mamas, or struggles with that, and trauma with mothers and wives and things like that. On our end, we hold a responsibility for that.
Well, I'll tell you this, it was a woman that I dated. She allowed me to experience kind of being that father figure in her daughter's life. And I would say the father-daughter dance, I went to 2 father-daughter dances with her. And I went to track meets, I went to volleyball games. And this young lady, I sat down and I was transparent with her, and I, as we would say, I told her the game, but I gave her things that she needed so that she can be that woman. And also, like you said, it's how you treat a mother. She was watching how I treated a mother. And also, this young lady, as she went to college, she just graduated from UTK, then graduated from Emory. And, she used to run out their dad trying to get money from him. And she used to show up at his job, but she didn't have to do that, because you know what? You're going to be able to make your own money. You can do your thing, but you also don't have to run out the man.
Right. That's true. Right. I want to answer the question that Brother Prescott asked about seeing his daughter every now and then or whatever, not really in her life. Okay, to me, anytime you are around her, you're gonna make an impression on her. Just do the right thing anytime. I don't care if it's a week, 2 or 3 days, or whatever a week. Anytime that she's around you, you instill that in her. That's what's going to help her more than you think.
Yeah. It's actually more valuable because if you're not around the daughter all the time, when you do see the daughter, those moments are so valuable, and she holds on to every moment. So in those moments, you make those moments very impactful, and they'll last their lifetime.
Exactly. Good deal.
I want to throw this in there. Men, fight for your kids. I don't care how the system look, like fight for your kids. Like even if it never got to the point in 18 years where they never granted you the custody that you needed. In them 18 years, you got paperwork, you got everything. So when it's time for them kids to make that decision to see you, it'd never be, why didn't you fight for me? Oh, hold up.
Right.
Right.
So I got receipts.
I got receipts, fight for your kids. I mean, like I told the mother of my child that, and it wasn't to like discredit anything. She's a great mom, but we get emotional. Yeah. So, and I still treat her right. I regardless of what our ties was, I still treat her right because I want my son to see like, hey, regardless of them being separated, dad is still, I told her the other day, I said, she's in the Marines. She made staff sergeant. She didn't want to take it. I knew she wouldn't. So I called her mom and I said, hey, I'm going to send you some money, let her go get her nails done or whatever the case may be, stuff like this. I still treat her right. That's the mindset that I have because I want that to happen for any and everybody. But I wanted to plug that in there about just fight for your kids because a lot of people, they'll tell you like, hey, the system is against you. And yeah, the system may be, but God isn't, and God knows when you're healed and you're ready to be there for your kids, them kids going to be placed in your life, but you can't get something that you ain't fighting for.
And I'll piggyback off what you're saying. You need to learn your rights, learn your rights as a father, and learn the state right. Cause every state is different. Every county is different. So it's very important for you to study that so you can represent yourself. So you can know the system and so you can understand, because also visitation is separate from child support. Make sure you try to get your kids your health insurance, life insurance, child support, and also, man, make sure that you do your visitation. Those are things that you really you can win with that against, fighting the system.
That's good.
Hey, and stop trying to run from child support. Child support actually entitles you in a lot of different ways, to actually be there as far as like joint custody. I don't know the extensive, side of it because I have looked into it. But once you're on child support, I mean, like, I know a lot of men be like, man, I don't want to be placed on child support, but I want my kids. I mean, okay, we'll take the child support. Right. And the court system will say, oh, he's been paying this right here every month. We're going to grant him some type of custodial, visitation or whatever the case may be, I told her to put me on child support, She like, I'm gonna put you on to do it.
They sent me a letter, man. They sent me a letter saying, hey, you did a great job. You've been paying your child support.
Congratulations, letter.
As soon as he graduated, I took the diploma up there and hey, he graduated.
Take me off child support.
Take me off the
list. Go ahead, Camille. I see you, Ms. Lee.
No, I'm just enjoying the conversation. I feel like I'm in the audience. I'm just tuning in. So I'm just thankful that you guys are here. I do want to bring you guys back and do a part 2 of this if you're willing to do that. I would love to do this again with you all. You guys have great chemistry and a lot to bring to the table. There's a lot of people that I've had and I didn't bring them back, but I bring you guys back because you guys have a lot to say. And you have a lot of value, and that's why I reach out to you when I do. I value your thoughts and your opinions, and thank you for sharing your perspectives with me and my audience. So I'm very humbled that you guys took the time out of your busy schedules to sit down and talk with me about these things. So before we close everything out, if you guys wouldn't mind, would you guys kind of go around and leave a nugget or jewel until we do a part 2 of this conversation to kind of give the those out there something to kind of think about until I bring you guys back for part 2 of this conversation.
You gonna name us off, Camille, in order you would like us to go?
Yes, sir, I will. Brandon, you can go ahead first.
Say again?
Bomb dropper. Bomb dropper. She said you go first.
Oh, you want me to go? Oh, okay. Oh, I didn't know. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Yes, Brandon, if you don't mind.
Yes, ma'am. The nugget I could give is stop caring what people think about you, man. If people's opinions of you could kill you, you'd have been dead a long time ago. So set your face to who you're going to be and leave it with that. That's all you got to do. And be willing to die for what you believe in.
Pastor Walton.
I think one of our greatest weapons that we can use is communication. That's going to solve a whole lot of issues if we can learn how to communicate. Communication is not just talking and waiting for you to finish so I can say something. Communication is talking and listening and responding to what you've heard the proper way. So communication is a big deal.
DJ.
Don't be afraid to be vulnerable with your brothers. That right there, the intimacy, the word intimacy is not sexual. So be able to be intimate with your brothers, you know. That's a great thing that'll help you move forward. It'll help you not look for somebody else, especially if you're in a relationship to be intimate with or vulnerable with. So just be vulnerable.
That's good.
With your brothers.
That's good.
Terrence.
Don't limit yourself in your parenting just because you may not be the primary parent.
That's good.
Prescott.
First, I just want to. 30 years ago, this wouldn't be a thing to see so many great fathers. So first, I just want to commend all of y'all for being in your kids' lives, being fathers. Because I always call this the generation of the fathers. I don't know any person in my life that's not in their kids' lives, and 30 years ago that may not have been the case. But my nugget would be for your kids, especially your sons, try not to make their problems be bigger than their dreams. So be in your kids' lives, help them, guide them, and minimize their problems so that their dreams are bigger than their problems.
That's good.
That's real good.
My nugget is this: the child is innocent. The child is innocent, and he or she is deserving of your love, your unconditional love. And for every effort that you try to do or that you make an attempt to do, that child will receive it. And no matter how big or small you may think it is, the child literally wants three things. He wants structure, unconditional love, and your time. That's it.
That's good. That's real good.
Yeah.
Real good.
Dr. McKenzie.
Thank you. I'll say, men, make it your primary goal to avoid the possibility of forfeiting being a father.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. That's real good.
That's really good.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for sharing those things. I really like it. Terrence, did you have something?
No. I'm saying that was that. Like that was a good one.
that was a
yeah.
right there with Dr. Microphone on that.
Right, exactly.
Well, thank you. And again, you guys, thank you so much for joining me. I also want to take the time to thank the viewers and listeners out there just for joining me in this conversation. Again, I do want to make this a part 2 later on, probably second quarter, if you guys are not traveling all over the place, but to bring you all back to have this conversation. So thank you. For those checking me out here, if you missed the live, the replay will be available, I believe, after midnight on my YouTube channel. So you can go there, subscribe, hit the notification button. That way you are aware when the replay is available. And be sure to follow all these gentlemen on their Instagram pages. If you're not sure, if you go to my Instagram page, Camille.Essick, on the post, I do have all of their handles listed there. So please make sure you follow them. If they have a brand or product, please support, because I do believe in supporting Black businesses. And I have designed my sample came in for my t-shirt. I don't know if you guys can see it, but it says "Good Black Men Still Exist." So I'm waiting to get feedback on that. And if everyone likes it, I'm going to put that out as a product. But yeah, it's a new t-shirt I designed. It says "Good Black Men Still Exist." So that'll be some new merch because I said I am an ally for the brothers and I believe in you guys. So with that being said, this is Camille Essick. I am the host of the Speaker Podcast. This is the podcast where innovators and creators connect. You guys be blessed.
Bless.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.